Thank you for joining us on today's episode of Engendered on KAFTAN Television, a show where we always have an in-depth analysis of all issues that affect the female gender. I am Chidinma Ufomadu.
Indeed, it's good to have you join us on Engendered this very episode. Of course, as Chidinma has said, where we discuss every matter concerning the female gender. And today isn't going to be an exception, as we already have our guest seated with us in the studio. But before you get to meet her, let's quickly go to a short break. And when we return, Engendered continues.
According to the World Health Organization, sexual health is a state of physical, mental, and social well-being in relation to sexuality, which is not the absence of disease, dysfunction, or disability. Sexual health, when viewed affirmatively, requires a positive and respectful approach to sexuality and sexual relationships, as well as the possibility of having pleasurable and safe sexual experiences free of coercion and violence. For sexual health to be achieved and sustained, the sexual rights of all people must be respected, protected, and fully exercised. Good sexual and reproductive health for women is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being in all matters relating to the reproductive system. It implies that women are able to have a satisfying and safe sex life, the capability to reproduce, and the freedom to decide if, when, and how often to do so. Sexual and reproductive health is not only about physical well-being, it includes the right to healthy and respectful relationships, health services that are inclusive, safe and appropriate access to accurate information, effective and affordable methods of contraception, and access to timely support and services in relation to unplanned pregnancy. The reproductive health concept is not only limited to mothers or women in the childbearing age. It recognizes the special health needs of adolescents related to their acquisition of the sexual and reproductive capacity before they have completed their social preparation for adulthood. It also recognizes that mature women beyond the childbearing period still have important health needs related to the reproductive system. For the maintenance of sexual and reproductive health, people need access to accurate information, safe, effective, affordable, and acceptable contraceptive methods of the people need to also be informed and empowered to protect themselves from sexually transmitted infections and sexually transmitted diseases. In most parts of Africa, sexual and reproductive health is considered a taboo to talk about. To break the vicious cycle, we need to create safe spaces for thousands of young girls to have free access to sexual and reproductive services and education.
Glad to have you back on this segment, and if you're just joining us, you're right on time because the show is just about to begin. And like you know, we always discuss issues that affect the female gender, even if it is an issue that can cross across both the male and female gender. We focus more on the female gender. And today we're going to be discussing sexual and reproductive health with a sexual and reproductive health advocate, Efe Johnson. You're welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Well, it's good to have you join us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Okay, so I think let's dive into the conversation straight. So we're going to be, there was something we were discussing before, and that's about sexual and reproductive health. And Victoria was trying to ask you that what is the need for us to discuss this particular topic, and what does this part, I know it's broad, because trying to look at it, I can't even place my hand on, okay, which aspect we should delve into. So what is it about?
Okay, so sexual and reproductive health deals with the entire reproductive system of the female gender, since we're focusing on the female gender right now. Yeah, but not just the system, it deals with the realities, it deals with the challenges and everything that has to do with sexual and reproductive health. I think it's so important for us to discuss this because it is a topic that affects literally everybody. Sexual and reproductive health is where life itself even starts from, is where life begins, from childbirth to from conception to childbirth, right? It has to do with sexual and reproductive health. And in the African context and the Nigerian context, I think because we are a very cultural and religious society, we've made such a natural, I like to call it a natural phenomenon because that's what it is, but we have made it such a taboo to even talk about. And with my organization, Zari Africa, we go to fields, we go to schools, we have conversations with girls. What we're trying to do is create a safe space where girls can learn, where they can talk about their bodies without feeling fear or shame. And when you go into the field, you realize just how terrible it is, the effect of this taboo and shame cycle that we have built. So you see a young girl, for example, who gets pregnant, maybe as a teenage girl, gets pregnant, and because it is such a shameful thing and it's such a taboo to talk about, she has nobody to speak to. She can't talk to her parents, she can't tell her friends, she can't tell her teachers in school, because you already know that the aftermath is going to be stigma and shame. So what does she do? She goes to a quack doctor, right, who promises that he would be able to help her abort now, and then in the process of aborting, she either loses the baby or loses her life. This is just one scenario, and this is a true life story I've just told as a story. So this is just one scenario of how sexual and reproductive health really affects us, and why we need to break the taboo and shame cycle and just make it a normal thing to talk about.
Okay, before we go to the shame and taboo part of it, I want you to, because we are talking to an audience, help us understand. Like you said, it isn't something that people have so much information about, even though it tends to be very peculiar amongst everybody. So help us understand, what is sexual reproductive health?
Okay, like I said, it has to do with the entire realities, challenges, and then the system of sex, sexuality, and the reproductive health in the female context now for girls, right? But it is such a broad topic. I don't think I can talk about it in its entirety right now. It's such a broad topic. It has to do with sex, it has to do with sexuality, it has to do with menstruation, periods, it has to do with pregnancy, it has to do with STDs, sexually transmitted disease. It's just really, really broad and complex, and that's why we need to talk about it, to break this thing down into things that everybody can understand. Girls, teenage girls, adolescents and all.
Okay, now let's look at it from this aspect. From what age do you think is okay to start speaking to these children? Because you hear some parents say things like, I don't want to expose my child at a young age. If the mother know, they might want to go and explore. And we have some people that still stay back. They don't teach them, but they go, the internet does the teaching to them. So at what age, at what time do you think is the right time to address children or speak to them, and how should we do it?
I think as early as possible, really. And if you follow me on social media, you see that I am always talking about it. I post some, well, in the context of Nigeria and Africa, it may sound controversial, but I know the importance of saying those things. I say things like, a vagina is a vagina, and I make sure I use the right words. A vagina a penis is a penis. You should teach children. Don't call the vagina bomb. Don't call the carrot or whatever. It is so important, because studies have actually shown, there are lots of studies that we've done research in our organization, and studies have actually shown that when children are taught their body parts using the appropriate names, it helps reduce the rate of abuse. Children can even know when they're being abused, and then they're better informed, and they're more likely to even report that they are being abused. Or when you don't teach a child, you think you're protecting them, but you're doing the direct opposite. You're actually exposing them to a lot more harm. So I think as early as possible, as you're raising children, let them know what parts of their bodies are private. Let them know what parts of their bodies should not be touched. Let them know what is to be expected. Let them know how their breasts is supposed to be like. Teach them, use the appropriate names. It is so important, much more important than we like to admit. So I think as early as possible. Okay, so
I know you mentioned culture as one of the mitigating factor that helps to speak about sexual reproductive health. But then what other factors do you think we could bring to light?
I think culture, like considering the context of Nigeria and Africa, is mostly a cultural thing. It's mostly a religious thing. I would also say it's mostly an education thing as well. So these three factors are the things that I would say. Yeah.
Okay, so now let's look at the female gender now. That's our focus of discussion today. So what I was reading in this, that there are some rights that some people are meant to be aware about when it comes to their sexual and reproductive health. What are those rights that we're meant to be aware about?
I mean, one of them is bodily autonomy, for example, which is just letting every girl child know that their body is theirs to make decisions about.
Okay.
Yeah, bodily autonomy, meaning you have the autonomy, the right to make decisions about your body. Your body is not something that your husband, for example, should make decisions about. It's not something that your parents should make decisions about. So having girls understand that their bodies are theirs is so important. And it may seem like a normal, natural thing to say. I mean, it's your body now, like it's yours to handle and all, but the reality is not the reality of a lot of girls. I mean, we're talking about girls that are engaged in child marriages, for example, right? And they're being forced even in the marriage, right? I made a video recently that blew up everywhere. I was talking about how spousal rape is not a real thing in Nigeria. And you know, people were like, once you're married, there's no such thing as rape.
The man owns your body and stuff like that.
Exactly. But bodily autonomy lets people know, even married women know, that hey, the fact that you're married does not mean your body belongs to your husband. You still have a right. So I think bodily autonomy is one of those rights that we must emphasize.
Okay, now talking about that part of marriage, because I think that's where you're actually right on what you said. A lot of people have mentioned the fact that they lack body autonomy. So whenever they're in a relationship, whether they feel like having sex or not, they owe it to their partner, because with the fear of, I don't want my partner to go outside and find someone to satisfy him or her. But sincerely speaking, we still have that issue lingering. Most people are still coming out to explain that their partners do not understand the fact that they own their body. So now, for the male parts, how do we address it for them to know that, okay, I'm your wife, yes, I'm not denying my body, but there's sometimes that I'm not going to be in the mood. I don't feel like I'm up to it right now. Some people put to bed and they feel like they're out of shape. They don't even feel like they're attractive for their partners. So I don't want you to touch me right now. Just let me be. So how do we put it to them that doesn't look like we're pushing you away, or we're sending you out to cheat, or we are no longer attracted to you? How do we address this?
I mean, that's why we do what we do, education, awareness, and that's why it should not be one-sided. As much as we are trying to educate the girls as well, I always say this, the girls will still end up interacting with the male counterparts. So the development and building and everything we're doing must go hand in hand. So it's so important that we educate even the boys as well. Even as we visit schools, as we go out into the field to talk to people, let's not just sideline it to just girls. Let's ensure that we are engaging the guys as well, he for she. I'm sure you've seen like campaigns like that from the United Nations and all. It's so important. I think that's one way we can do that.
Okay, Chidinma made a point about what we can do as women to make men understand. But do you think, in your own opinion, that women understand themselves, that they have a right to what happens to their body, based on what you've seen in the field, based on your analysis gathered? Do you think women understand that they have a right to their body?
I mean, again, that's why we do what we do. That's why we're doing what we're doing right now, because there's still a lot more work to be done, if we're being honest, right? A lot of girls do not even know that they have rights. A lot of girls do not even know that their bodies are theirs to make decisions about. The indoctrination has gone on for too long. It's a deep thing. It has eaten too deep into the society that you feel like you are working with just a tiny group of girls in Kaduna State. You know that you're doing so much impact, but you can see that there is still a lot more work to be done. So I think it has to go hand in hand, as you are educating the girls, educating the boys, as you are giving awareness to the boys about female issues. We must not assume that girls know exactly what we're talking about as well. We must bring everybody together and then grow together.
Okay, so safe sex, sorry, Chidinma, contribute parts of, it's one of the components of sexual reproductive health. Tell us about safe sex.
Safe sex, 2 words, safe and sex. Just bringing those 2 words together. Safety during sex has to do with keeping safe, keeping your body safe, even your mind as well. But we focus more on the bodily aspect and ensuring that you're staying safe from diseases, safe from unwanted pregnancies, and safe from anything that you would not want going on within your body and within your system. So of course, we always advocate for the ABCs of safe sex. A is for abstain, which means, and that's the first and safest option, to abstain from sex. I mean, once you don't do it, there are no chances of contracting diseases or getting pregnant or anything. And then B is for be faithful. Stay faithful to one partner, so you reduce your chances of contracting diseases, and then C is for contraceptives. So if you cannot do A or B, or you choose not to do A or B, then you can opt for C. Ensure that you're always using contraceptives and you're having protected and safe sex.
Okay, now for the female gender, how do we know that we have a good sexual and reproductive health? How do we know we are okay, we're in shape?
Frequent medical checkups would be the first thing to come to mind. Most people do not even know that you're supposed to visit a doctor to check, you know, their internal health, their sexual and reproductive health. I always advise that you speak with someone as often as you can, and do not overlook anything. If there is a change in the color of your period blood, sorry to sound this raw, do not overlook it. Do not overlook it, okay? Visit your doctor. If there is a change in the size of your breast and you notice it, do not assume that it is nothing. Talk to someone, visit someone. And this is why we do what we do, to break the taboo and shame cycle, because even in the medical field, you realize that there is still a lot of shaming. Young people are so scared to walk into a pharmacy to buy a condom, you know, because of fear of, okay, what would they think of me? I'm having sex, you know, what would this person think of me? They're so scared to visit a clinic if they're pregnant at 16 or 18 or 20, because I'm going to look like the odd one out, I'm going to look like a child amongst people. So that shame and taboo cycle must be broken at every sector: medicine, the church, religion, culture, everywhere. So it must be broken. But I would say medical checkups as frequently as possible. Do not overlook anything at all when it comes to your sexual and reproductive health.
Okay, but what of the aspects whereby there are some people that don't have access to good health care system around them? They're in the rural areas and literally nothing is going on. They can't even afford money to feed. Talk more of, oh, maybe I missed my period this month, I know I'm not pregnant, maybe it could be an infection or something, I want to go and check up. So how do we handle that kind of situation?
And to add to what Chidinma said, the way the extent at which the hospital tends to like charge up a lot of money these days, because the prices are actually exorbitant. So it's really hard for people, especially ordinary people, to go to the hospital to access safe care mechanism or something.
Yeah. So I'd say that there's still a lot of work to be done when it comes to impact funding. I think I made a tweet about that just today when it comes to impact funding, because the truth is there are lots of, and this is where it happens in the grassroots, right? And there are lots of grassroots organizations willing to do the work, but they're not getting enough funding to do that work. Yeah, you see that canopy organizations that have great branding and just a minimal impact are the ones that receive all the funding, and that funding never gets to where it needs to get to. Meanwhile, grassroots organizations that actually have one-on-one access, like my organization, we have one-on-one access to these people. We know their pains. Everything you've just said, we know that there are girls who cannot even access these things, and that's why sometimes we go out to distribute pads. We know that there are boys who do not even know about condoms but they want to have sex. Sometimes we go out to distribute condoms. We do these things from our own pockets as an organization. So I understand what you're saying. Well, we cannot solve it all. So we implore that everybody just do the bits they can from where they can. So even you, Chidinma, if you're in an area that you know that girls cannot access this thing, would you stand up and say, oh, I'm going to take charge of 3 girls in this community and just give them pads for the rest of the year? I think everybody should get involved.
Well, you mentioned something about going out to share condoms, even to guys that think they want to have sex. Permit me, at what age do you give children condom?
Oh, you don't give children condoms.
Oh, sorry for using the term children.
Yes.
Okay, I was trying to refer to the fact that a parent once cried out that some people came to the school or so and shared condom for the children, and she was bothered, like, I am not expecting my child to actually be having sex right now. But in all sincerity, the child had a discussion with one of the because she actually called us the school and did a lot of things. The child had a discussion with one of the persons that came to speak with them, and the person discovered that this child is actually sexually active, and since I can't talk him out of it, I should help him protect himself. That was what she thought. But the parents in her mind, I have brought up my child well, and I don't think that my child should be having sex right now. So why are you giving my child condom? but the person did not want to come out and say, okay, your child actually started having sex so many years ago before you even find out. So I mean, I used the wrong word, children, but at what age do you start giving boys or girls condom? And have you had an instance whereby maybe some parents react, some teachers feel like, no, it's an abomination, don't do that? And how do you handle that kind of thing?
I mean, we hear these stories every day. We interact with such parents every day. We know these things. And like I said, it is more of a cultural thing. It's either culture or religion taking place. When you see situations like this, it's either culture or religion, right? And I don't think African and Nigerian parents understand that even their own children are humans of their own, and that's why we talk about autonomy. So because you gave birth to a child does not mean you own that child.
Okay.
Yeah, it does not mean you own the child. You understand? So we have to, I mean, the awareness and the education even needs to get to the point of parents as well, right? So you have to understand that, hey, as much as you want to be protective, and I understand that parents want to be protective of their children, as much as you want to be protective, at some point you're going to have to understand that this person will make his own decisions as a human being, with or without your input. In this case, the boy was already making his own decisions by having sex. So it's not about the parents, it's about the child, it's about the person that we're talking about. And I think as much as we don't exactly force it on people, sometimes we keep it open, like, hey, we just let you know that you can access free condoms if you do need it, right? I think from the age where a child can, or we said we're not using that word, from the age where a young man can start having sex, that's puberty, from that age, because from there he can get a girl pregnant, he can contract diseases. It doesn't matter if he's Christian or Muslim or anything. So from that age, I think the education is important, and I think the access to those resources are also important.
Okay, so what needs to change to have people in communities, especially rural areas, talk about these topics, especially menstruation? For instance, I'll give you a certain tribe would only allow their women do family planning if the man is not aware. So they keep giving birth to lots of children. You see, sometimes they have 8 children, 9 children. The woman can go on with the family planning so far the man does not know. So it's kind of a mitigating factor for the woman to want to do it in the first place. So what do you think needs to change so that people can easily talk about these things, as though, even though I'm using as though now, so as to feel as though as if it's normal?
So I mean, that's the entire reason why my organization was created, Zari Africa, to break the taboo and shame cycle and just destigmatize these issues. So when you hear the people I work with, the people who volunteer with me and who work with me, I have made it so normal for us to say things like in public, and you say the and everybody's just like, oh my god. So,
I can imagine.
Yeah, but then over time you can see that they get used to it. Exactly. They get used to. So I say it's a mental thing first, and once we start breaking down those mental walls, I think we're going to penetrate society and we're going to make it so normalized. So forgive me if you've ever hated me for going online and calling those words and saying things as raw and plain as I do, but I know that it's doing something in your mind. By the time you read it 2 or 3 times, you're like, okay, maybe it's even normal to say these words. So I think that's one way, probably even the most effective way, given the context of our society, to handle that.
You know, the funny thing, like what you can say, I can totally relate to it, because most of the time I just mentioned that people are like, why are you talking about it like that? But the funny thing is that more people are hiding and doing this thing. It's so surprising how you can find a teenager telling you alternative names for their private part that they use, and you're wondering, like, how did you guys come up with this? And they're all trying to play smart, so you don't hear what they're talking about. You will go to their phones, you see their chats, they're talking about it. There was a group chat where a secondary school group chat, it leaked at some point, you know, when I was in secondary school, and you are trying to communicate with other people in other schools, and it leaked where somebody was saying, I had sex with this girl and I've smelling. That was what he went to the boys group chat and posted, and they were all laughing about it. So in their head they had that stigma for her, like she has this and stuff like that. But we'll continue on this discussion after this break. Okay, viewers, we'll be going on a short break, and when we return, Engendered continues. We will be right back.
My name is Sheila BCFR, the Black Comedian of the Federal Republic. I tell you, when it comes to the best of entertainment, the best of news, the best of information, something that is educative, you're right here at the best place to see that. It's KAFTAN TV. You know what? Increase the volume. Keep watching. Don't touch the dial, okay?
It's your girl Nkechi Blessing Sunday. I want you all to keep watching KAFTAN TV.
Please keep watching KAFTAN TV. It is the best TV station in the country. They're doing an amazing job. Please do not touch the dial. Keep watching. Thank you.
My name is Sheila BCFR, the Black Comedian of the Federal Republic. I tell you, when it comes to the best of entertainment, the best of news, the best of information, something that is educative, you're right here at the best place to see that. It's KAFTAN TV. You know what? Increase the volume. Keep watching. Don't touch the dial, okay?
It's your girl Nkechi Blessing Sunday. I want you all to keep watching KAFTAN TV.
Please keep watching KAFTAN TV. It is the best.
Please, girls, let's be fast with our chores. It's almost time for Engendered. Girls, it's time for your favorite program, Engendered. Yeah, Mommy, we're coming right away. Sophia, turn off the gas. What are your fears as a woman? And what are your doubts as a lady? You think you're alone with those thoughts? Then welcome to Engendered, where we bring you discuss, interviews, reviews, experiences, opinions on issues relating to the female gender. This is Engendered. Please, girls, let's be fast with our chores. It's almost time for Engendered.
Thanks for joining us again. And if you're just joining us, you're watching Engendered streaming live from KAFTAN TV. And we've been discussing sexual reproductive health with our guest, Effie. Before we went on that break, Chidinma was about to ask a question.
So I was about to ask the fact that some people, apart from that secondary school I made a reference to, the boys there, when people talk about people that have smelly, what could be the cause? Because sometimes you say it smells like fish. Some people say it smells like fish, or it has a bad odor. And what is the proper smell of a? And how can you know that?
Seem to be enjoying this discussion.
I mean, talk about this thing
because so many people are like, if you hear stories outside of what is going on, people have been body shamed for this because they have no idea about it. Some people are going out there just so proud of their distributing it, and then it's smelling. You get. Some people are passing down infection to other people and they don't know. So how do you know when you're smelling? What is the cause of a smelling and how can we treat it?
Okay, so I made a video recently where I talked about this exact same thing, and I'm always talking about like my work, videos, things that I've done, because it's literally my track record. And in that video on Instagram, in the comments, someone was like, this is so wrong. If you're smelling, then it means something is really wrong with you and you should see a doctor. And then I had to type in a disclaimer. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a doctor, but I do have knowledge on sexual and reproductive health. And in Zaria Africa, we engage. And in Zaria Africa, we engage professionals in our line of work, right? So the distinct smell of its own, and it is not supposed to smell like roses. It's not supposed to smell like perfume and chocolates, like tampon ads or pad ads advertisements tell you, right? They're telling you those things because they're trying to sell you condoms or pads, or they're trying to sell you washes or all of those things. But your vagina is not supposed to smell like roses. It has a natural distinct smell of its own, right? But if it does smell really bad, I mean as bad as rotten fish, or decayed organisms, that's when you should get worried and see a doctor. But I think the vagina normally has a smell of its own. It's not so bad, but it's not exactly all
it's not like perfume oil. Exactly.
It's not pleasant and yummy, and this is so important even for men to learn, because like you said, men shame women about it, like, oh, the fishy smell. I saw a meme on Twitter recently and I was so disgusted by it because it was posted by a medical professional, right? And I'm like, how can you even, these are the things we're talking about, the inequalities even in the medical profession, right? You're just out to shame women, and disgrace women. So I think education is also really important. So yeah, there are several things that could affect the way the smells. You know, so much goes on down there. There's menstruation, there could be an infection, there could be a change in your pH levels. So much can go on down there that can, I mean, the female body is a work of art. There's always something going on, so you don't expect it to be all perfect and rosy and beautiful.
Okay, does lifestyle play a role in sexual reproductive health? Because I know I was doing some research at a time and I saw something like, if you sit too much it affects, if you do exercise too much it affects. There's some certain kind of food you have to eat, fruits you have to take. So how do we look at all this thing holistically?
Okay, I mean, I must always give the disclaimer that I am not a medical professional, right? I'm not a medical professional. My work really revolves around the awareness part of it, just getting people to know about their rights, about the realities and challenges about sexual and reproductive health. So I'm not exactly a medical professional, but yes, I do believe that lifestyle has a lot to do with sexual and reproductive health. I mean, even for men, they tell you if you exercise well, you'll be able to better perform in bed. They tell women if you want to be able to stretch and be more flexible, you should exercise. There are certain fruits and food that will help your immune system, your reproductive and sexual system. So I think it's holistic, but we should also seek medical advice.
Okay, now another one I would like to talk about is the fact that some people feel like anything can go down here. You see, when I was
when I'm trying to dodge questions,
she
brings it up.
Yes, she's enjoying this conversation. When I was in school, we had people that we use antiseptics to wash down there. They would tell you things like it has to be clean because they have the mindset that antiseptic, either soap or the liquid, kills bacteria, so it has to be clean. Then we have some people that whenever they're going to see their boyfriends, they start spraying over there. Some people believe that I should use soap to wash it to be clean. Some people have started doing now, there's a part like you mentioned, the feminine wash that people are doing now that you have to use to make it clean. Are those things healthy? Does it help our sexual and reproductive health down there?
Again, I am not a medical professional. I am not a medical professional, so I wouldn't take nothing I say as medical advice, but trust that it is well informed information that I'm giving out. Okay, when it comes to the, like I have learned, and like you can learn, because we can all learn things, but like I have learned from research and the medical professionals that work with my organization, we learned recently that is a self-cleansing organ of the body. Most people do not know that. Like on its own, it was designed to clean itself. So all the extra things you're putting in there most times are completely unnecessary, right? And that's the problem of consumerism. They're just always trying to sell you things to buy. So they'll tell you buy this, buy that, buy this, buy that, and then you too, you're just always buying and buying and buying. So well, most of these things are really unnecessary. Is these self-cleansing organisms. Research has shown, medical research has shown that just warm water is enough most times to clean inside of your vagina. But of course, most Nigerians and Africans would not want to believe that. You know, you have to ensure that it's really clean. So
I even learned that the has its own bacteria there, and sometimes some of this our actions of trying to clean kills the bacteria, right? Victoria,
please leave me alone. Okay, so I want to ask what will men, because no matter how we cannot take men out of this top discussion, what role men can play, especially in helping women care for their reproductive system?
I think the first thing would be to even just accept the fact that women are completely different from them. The way we function, the needs we have, our emotional needs are tied to our sexual and reproductive health. Like, it's just a very holistic system that God has designed as the female body. So I think understanding will be the first step for men. Just get to the point where you accept and understand these realities about women. You have to learn that sometimes she will bleed and stain herself. Are you willing to deal with that? You have to learn that it's not every time, you know, she's going to be willing to have sex with you. It could be a lot of things. It could be menstruation, it could be cramps. I always give this analogy that we as women mostly just have 1 week in an entire month. A month is 4 weeks averagely, but mostly we have just 1 week out of 4 to be completely whole. It's either the premenstrual symptoms, the menstruation itself, or ovulation. And each of those things take about a week, and each of those things have their own symptoms. Exactly. They have their own wahala that they come with. You know, men need to be a lot more understanding and accepting of the fact that women go through a lot when it comes to sexual and reproductive health. They go through a lot, and we are not the same. We're not created and designed to function the same way as they were. So I think that would be the first step. And of course, understanding will bring education as well. When you're willing to understand what women go through, you want to get education, you want to be more aware of these things, you want to become a better person for that woman in your life. So
yeah. Okay, when you talk about being on the field, when you come in contact with little, maybe young ladies or teenagers that are already pregnant and feel like they want to take out the child just because they can't face their parents, or they just feel like it's not time, it was a mistake, or things like that, how are you able to deal with this, and what do you advise them to do?
Oh, see, this is very tricky because I will always refer to the fact that we are a deeply religious and deeply cultural society, right? So it's very tricky. But what we try to let girls know is that they have a choice. They have an option, right? They have a choice. They have an option. Because we're a religious society, most of the girls just assume that the only option they have is to keep this child. You know, that is it. There's not even space or chance to talk about any other thing. You know that you have to keep this chance. So what we're looking at is you have to keep the child. So what we're now talking about is, okay, how do we make this less stressful for you? How do we make this have a lot less impact on your life, on your education, your academics, and all of those things? Of course, you know, the option I was talking about was the option of abortion. But I'm just going, I know it's very controversial, but I'm just going to put it out there that it is you know, medically considered an option for girls. I don't think it's legal in Nigeria, so I'm not even pushing that out as an option for in Nigeria, but I'm just stating generally it's also considered an option. So I think from our own experience, when we reach out to these girls, because it's not legal yet, abortion is not legal in Nigeria, what we do is we try to support them to either have the child or ensure that they are not leaving behind their education to take care of a child, or we just give them other options. Do you want to give this child up for adoption for a while? Do you want to go back to school? Several things to talk about and discuss with them.
Okay, let's talk about abortion. Do you think a country should regulate with laws when a woman should abort? Do you think in any way?
I think it is I think it's unfair to impound on the rights of women that way, because a woman should have a right to choose what she wants to do. A woman should have a right. I think the word is just choice. You don't take choice away from someone, because by cancelling out abortion, you're literally saying the only option you have is to have that child. I'm not giving you a choice. I'm not even giving you a chance to choose, and I think that is completely unfair. I think women should have the chance to choose. Choice was literally the only thing that God gave, was literally one of the first things that God gave man, liberty to choose. I don't think man should take that away from man. So I think women should be allowed to choose what they want to do with their bodies, because abortion, we tend to see it in the sense that, hey, you just got pregnant and you want to get rid of this child. What if she was raped? Right? What if she was raped? and she got pregnant through rape, for a rapist, no woman would want to deal with the effect of bringing a child to term, you know, that was conceived through such a brutal manner. So these are just scenarios I'm trying to paint for us, but I think choice should not be taken away from women.
Okay, now let's look at it from this aspect of maternal health. How do you think women should take care of themselves? Because when we look at sometimes maternal deaths, when a woman is giving birth, at some point it was getting high for some time, later it came down. So what are those necessary steps every woman should take when they're during their pregnancy period for them to be able to ensure a safe birth?
Okay. So now I'm going to give 2 disclaimers. Number 1, repeating that I'm not a medical professional. Okay. And number 2, repeating that, you know, or emphasizing that I've not had a child before. I've dealt with teenage pregnancies. I've dealt with young girls, but I've actually not had a child before. But we also, so when we deal with teenage girls who are pregnant, you know, we try to ensure that they are well taken care of. They attend all the antenatals, yes, that they can attend. They get checked up on regularly, very important. All of these medical procedures and steps are in place. I think following that, following medical procedures and steps would ensure to a large extent that, you know, women are safe when it comes to maternal health.
Okay, so but do you think family planning, the instance I gave for it's actually underrated in this part of the country?
Of course. Of course it is. That's why you can give the example of, you know, saying someone, just yesterday I was on a trip and I was just baffled at how a young and obviously young lady was dragging, you know, children within the same age range. I'm like, wow, how do you even do that? You know, it's because these women like that do not even know that they have the options to choose, and which brings us back to bodily autonomy, right? They do not even know that they have the options to choose. So family lets women know that, hey, you can choose when, you can choose how, you can choose if you want to have children, and you can even determine the spacing that you want to give each child. So it puts that choice, that power of choice, back in your hands. So I think family planning, although it's very underrated in this part of the world, especially in northern Nigeria, I think it's still very important, and we must continue to push for awareness and education on it.
Okay, now let's look at another aspect, which is female genital mutilation. It's also another aspect of it. We've heard that severally. As much as it is done locally, it is also done clinically, even in the hospital where nurses help carry out this particular health. What is your stand on female genital mutilation?
Of course, I stand against it with everything that I am. I think it's brutal. I think it's abusive. I think it's invasive to whoever you know, gets to experience it. So I stand against it with everything that I am and everything that I believe in. And it's mostly done. I've not exactly met anyone that has, you know, that has experienced that from the medical standpoint. I know it's more of a very cultural thing, and the cultural and religion. I just keep emphasizing these things because it has held us back as a people. Culture and religion, as much as they can be fantastic things, I know that they also have their limitations. So it's mostly a cultural thing, because you don't want your child to have sex or do whatever, and then you now feel like it's your duty to impound on that child's rights. I stand against it with everything that I am. I think it's unfair. Okay, so what can we do now? Like, you have spoken about some of the actions that you carry out as individuals. What do you think we can do to help fight this issue that's come up with sexual and reproductive health? Because I've noticed that, okay, because you're not a doctor, I'm not going to ask you some particular type of questions. Sexual and reproductive health is very important, but people don't talk about it. It affects the fertility, infertility rates, the way a woman perceives herself, the way a man perceives himself. So what are those things that we can do to make sure that the society is getting it right when it comes to this, our sexual and reproductive health? So I always say that sexual and reproductive health is everybody's business, and I mean that with everything. I think it's everybody's business. I don't think it's the business of medics alone. I don't think it's the business of activists like myself. I don't think it's the business of NGOs alone. I think it's everybody's business, right? Parents, how are you raising your children? Are your girls comfortable enough to talk to you about the menstruation. I mean even the fathers, even the men. Are your girls comfortable enough to talk to you about menstruation? Are they comfortable enough to talk to you about sexual health and sex and all of these things? It starts from there. Teachers in school, are you still stigmatizing these things, these topics, when you talk to children in school? In church, pastors, imams in the mosque, how do you handle such topics? When a girl gets pregnant, does she suddenly become a sinner and she's no longer worthy of communing with the righteous saints? These are the things that push for that stigma, right? I think it's everybody's business. Everybody, from where you are, just play your part.
Okay, I know you said the sexual reproductive health amongst women is not something that it's in the public domain so well like that. But even that of men is also not in the public domain. So do you think in a way, often talking about these things, kind of demean the woman, like the womanhood, for instance? The woman is told to shave her armpits, clean her pubic parts, but the man, sometimes you see the hairs there. Nobody's talking about that. But the woman is told what to do. In a way, don't you think it's kind of like bringing the woman too much to the forefront and then taking away the part of the man? Or shouldn't a man also clean his armpits?
Thank you. Of course, men should.
And then you tell them, like, I'm a man.
So you're a man, exactly, you're a man, not an animal. Take care of yourself, right? And that's what we try to emphasize. It's not just a one-sided thing. It's not just for women alone. It has to do with both genders. Everybody has a responsibility. Keep yourself clean, take care of yourself, be mindful about your sexual health, because that's how men feel like, hey, they can have sex without protection. I'm like, oh, I'm a man. But women are more of the ones that are always scared of, oh, infection, oh, this and that. But men do not care. Do you want to die? Don't you love yourself? I think it should be a double-sided thing. Men should also be interested. Men should also be educated and made aware of sexual and reproductive health rights. And I was going to say that the emphasis, as always, is choice and autonomy. So if a woman doesn't want to shave her armpits, she should not be shamed for not wanting to shave her armpits. It's her choice.
Why you're laughing?
You know why I'm laughing? I had someone tell, someone was trying to plead dirty with a lady, and he told her that he doesn't like when she shaves, that she should leave it like that. And I was like, oh, we are not animals, like you rightly said, we need to shave, but he said he likes it when the hair is there. I don't know.
But like I said, it's not even about him. It should now be her choice.
Her choice. Okay, another thing now I would like to ask is about menstrual health. I would like you to advise the teenager or people, at this point, I think everybody, because I even think that even people that are adults don't even know how to take care of themselves during their menstruation. How should you take care of yourself during your menstruation?
Okay, I mean, there are lots of ways to keep clean during menstruation, like changing your pads regularly, like using the right kinds of menstrual products for yourself. Most people just assume, or most girls in this part of the world and country, are only made aware of pads. It even took us a lot to make them aware of pads, because it was rags and foams and other dirty things that girls use, and that we started to introduce pads, right? So they don't even know that there are options. There's menstrual cup, there's tampons, there are options. So it's also important to find which works best for you. Right, that's also really important. And then keep yourself clean, change often, shower as many times as you can. Just practice good hygiene, basically.
Okay, do you stand for reusable pads? I think you understand what I'm saying, because
yeah, I do.
I've seen an argument where some people were talking about reusable pads and the fact that you need to wash it regularly, and then you see that you go and share this kind of pad in environments where they don't even have access to clean water or even soap to even use to wash it, and you share it to them. Are you trying to say they should just I really don't understand. That's what I'm asking, if you're for reusable pads.
That's a tricky question. I wish I could skip, because I'm really into the menstrual health issue and topic. That's like a core focus for me. But I would say that it is an option, and because of how I don't think we realize how poor and underdeveloped some parts of this country are. I don't think we understand that. We think that when we say Nigeria is a poor country, it's because we've not sold fuel in a couple of days. But when you go into the nooks, you realize that people do not even have options. So I think menstrual health, reusable pads create an option. May not be the best of options, but it's an option. We're saying start here. Have this first. Have a sense of dignity. We're just giving them an option to just have that sense of, hey, dignity, and be able to handle themselves on their periods. Once you start here, we can think of other better options to use. So we're not saying it's the best options, but we're saying, hey, you can at least start here.
Okay, what's your best opinion or best option of disposal of pads?
Disposing of pads. I mean, just wrap it in and throw it away. But again, we're a deeply superstitious, deeply religious, deeply cultural society. So most people would want to burn. I even read recently, someone was saying that she goes through the stress of tearing open her pads and then I'm like, whoa, whoa, like, whoa, really? Is it that deep? I did not realize it was that deep.
I learned that in school, while I was in school.
Yes. I just only learned it recently and I was so shocked to have heard that. But I think, hey, it's as easy as just wrapping it and throwing it away. People go the extra mile to burn. People go the extra mile to tear out and wash and dispose and do whatever. Do what works for you and what works for the environment. So
okay, thank you so much. They're calling on us to round up. Thank you for that insightful session. And Victoria was just cringing because that we have. We both have the body parts we're talking about. And we come in contact with this daily. You have your bath, like your audience. Okay, thank you so much. It was an interesting session with you. Okay, viewers, I think the ones you've been able to, the questions you've been having on your mind, I hope she has been able to answer some of them. And it is your body parts. It is your body. Own it. Parents, please stop saying what kind of words would I use? Like she mentioned carrots and stuff like that. You know, when I was
diary.
Are you kidding me? My auntie trained her children in a way that even when you're beating them, after beating them when they were small, she will still go back and say, Mommy, Auntie Chidinma touched my and I'm like, if I was not there to defend myself, it's going to look like another thing. But she actually taught them that it's your body. And so nobody has the right to touch your body except you agree to it. And there's a particular stage you will get to before you can give permission. Normally it is after marriage, but now I don't know what is happening right now. Let me not go into that before Victoria thinks I'm preaching. But do well to take care of yourself. Understand your body parts. Understand when to go to the hospital to visit your doctor. If you have irregular menstruation, if you're having a smelling of if you're having infections, sometimes you will urinate and it will smell so bad. Like it's not meant to be so. Don't say I've not drank water in a long while, or maybe it's the beer I drank, or it's the soft drink I took. Go and check yourself. It's okay to do a test. Trust me, it is cheaper to do a test and find out that you're okay than to start treating these things. People are paying hundreds of thousands to cure bacterial infection in their body, and it could affect your fertility rate. Like you now start struggling with the aspect of giving birth, childbearing. Save yourself of all the stress. Better still abstain from premarital sex. Do well to join us next time for another interesting episode. I remain Chidinma Ufomadu.
Well, I am Victoria Agbi. Until next time, bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Girls, let's be fast with our chores. It's almost time for Engendered. Girls, it's time for your favorite program, Engendered. Yeah, Mommy, we're coming right away. Sophia, turn off the gas. What are your fears as a woman? And what are your doubts as a lady? You think you're alone with those thoughts? Then welcome to Engendered, where we bring you discuss, interviews, previews, experiences, opinions on issues relating to the female gender. This is Engendered.